Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at a spell out of Unearthed Arcana, a third level magic user spell, specifically Item. I think this is an underrated spell. I'm surprised my players don't take it more often. When I play a magic user, I almost always take it. It's a third level spell, which means you're eligible to get it at 5th level MU. Range is touch, 6 turns per level, which and duration is quadrupled if it's non-living material. So 6 turns per level is an hour per level. So if I'm 5th level when I cast this, I get 5 hours, but it's quadrupled if I use it on non-living material, which means it's 20 hours if I cast it on something that's not alive. That's pretty good. Area of effect is 2 cubic feet per level of the caster. That's actually very big. And cause it to shrink to 1/12 its normal size. Optionally, the caster can also change the now shrunken composition to a cloth-like one. Only living things are entitled to saving throw versus spell, but each save is made at +4. Objects and creatures transformed into cloth make saving throws normally, not as if not altered, against subsequent attacks. And that can be important. I'll get to that in a moment. Objects chained by an item spell can be returned to normal composition and size merely by tossing them onto any solid surface or by word command from the original spellcaster. It is possible to affect a fire and its fuel with this spell. So a lot in there, and there's a lot of sneaky stuff you can do with this spell. First off, the duration is really nice. An hour per level, quadrupled if you use it on non-living material. You're saying, okay, what possible good is this? Well, you find that chest, and that chest is full of all kinds of goodies that you want to take with you, but the encumbrance would be an issue. You could use this spell, cast it on the chest, at my table, would affect all the contents in the chest, shrink it down to 1/12 its size, and then pick it up and carry it out of the dungeon as if it were 1/12 the size it had been. And that would allow you 20 hours, because it's non-living, to get the thing out of the dungeon. And always, if you can't get out in that time, the spellcaster could set it down before the spell ends. Take the item off the spell, take the spell off of the item rather, and then recast the spell. So there's a lot of good uses for this. Now, certainly fireball or item, I would take a fireball. Lightning bolt or item, I would take a lightning bolt. But item still has a lot of good uses, and you have time. You can cast this spell on something before you go into a dungeon. I had a magic user when he was lower level. His name was Willis. Willis is still around. He's about 9th level now. And I would cast anything I could cast out of the dungeon to bring into the dungeon, assuming I had the spell. And I did have an item spell. So one of the things I would bring in, I would cast this, the night before, and then rememorize the spell during the time before the items expanded, is I would cast it on a chair or a table. And the idea was that I would carry this in as a cloth-like thing. So it would just be a small little tarp with a picture of a chair on it. We always put a picture of whatever it is on the outside of the cloth. And then at need, I could expand it to use the chair to block a doorway or use the table to block a doorway. It was just something, a little idiosyncrasy my character had when he was around 5th, 6th level. I did it a few times. It was fun. I've never used this, or seen it used for that matter, on a living creature. I've only ever seen it on non-living things. And as far as the cloth, turning it into a cloth, if it's a 10 by 10 by 10, it's that big gold statue you have no chance of moving, you go ahead and hit it with an item, turn it into a cloth, you roll it up, it becomes like a big tarp. It still has some decent weight, 1/12 the weight of whatever the thing was. So you're still going to need multiple people to carry it out of the dungeon, but it's certainly much more manageable than that massive 10 by 10 by 10 statue would have been. So there's a lot of good uses for this particular spell. And keep in mind, it's 2 feet per level of the caster. It goes as you get up in levels. So this is a very underrated spell, in my opinion. Also, possible to affect a fire and fuel with this spell. You could hit a large bonfire. You could go ahead and hit it with the item and turn it into cloth. We rule that it's not burning at that time. It's just a picture of a bonfire with cloth on it. Then you toss it down, say the word, it becomes a bonfire again. Great way to block a doorway. Great way to ignite something that's already been put down, waiting to be ignited. Just a couple of different uses for the item spell. The old boulder. you shrink down the boulder, because there is no weight limitation on this. It's only cubic feet. So I could shrink down a boulder, turn it into a cloth or just a smaller boulder, bring it into the dungeon, and then set it on the floor in front of a door, and then take the item spell off, and suddenly I've got a boulder blocking the doorway. You can also use it here. I would allow you to throw it, but it's only going to go so far because it's a small boulder. But if you throw it and say the command word as it's leaving your hand, I would let it grow in mass and strike somebody as a boulder. So I would give you extra damage for it. That's just a few uses for this particular spell. Great way too if you've got that evil sword that nobody wants to touch. Hit it with an item spell. You have to touch it to hit it with an item spell, but if there's a way to shrink this guy down, maybe you turn it into a piece of cloth that you can put into a bag of holding, and as long as you remember to get to it before the time runs out, you can get that sword out of the dungeon. So there's lots of different ways. So I've always liked this spell. When I first read Unearthed Arcana, I thought this was a great spell, and I've continued to use it. I continue to encourage its use at my table. That's all I've got to say today on the item spell from Unearthed Arcana. Fine spell. Let me know how you use it in your campaign. And maybe I'm wrong about a few things. Maybe it should be done a different way. I don't know. Comments are there, so let me know. And that's all I've got today from page 121. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time.